Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us at Build for the Birds of a Feather panel, where we're talking to a couple amazing startups that are building on Teams and on Azure and leveraging the Microsoft ecosystem. My name is Jeff Ma. I'm the Vice President of Microsoft for Startups and joined Microsoft now a little over a year ago, which is crazy because it was post-pandemic and I still have really yet to meet most of my team, but I've been lucky enough to take this program over and really focus it on a few different things, really helping startups from idea to exit, which is really what we want to do. We've kind of coined this idea that startups have different phases of their journey, starting with an idea, going to an MVP, going to product market fit, going to growth, and going to exit. And we want to be there at each stage of your journey. And so with that, we're excited to start talking about something that we're building right now. It's in beta, it's in private beta, and ultimately people attending this session can sign up for an early preview of it. Not sure when it'll be coming out, but we'd love to get you sort of on the wait list. It's called Founders Hub, and we're going to be using it as a way to connect and solve the technology challenges that most of you founders have out there at each phase of your journey, and try to connect you in the best way possible with both the products and programs that we have at Microsoft for Startups. So super excited to start talking about that more in the future. But for now, if you want to visit the site listed below here, and we'll show this again at the end of the session, so a reason to stick around for the entire session, we're happy to have you get on that wait list. I'd love to bring in now some introductions to our panel. From Troops, we have Dan Reich and Greg Ratner. Dan's the CEO, Greg's the CTO. Would love to have you tell a little bit about yourselves and your solution, and then we'll talk a little bit about Mural with Pato and Richard, who are joining us. So first, Troops.
Yeah, hey Jeff, thanks, and great to see you all virtually. So I'm Dan, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Troops. 5-6 years ago, we had this idea that work would forever change and that the future would look a whole lot more like messaging and collaboration. We felt like that's where people would spend their time increasingly doing work and getting things done. And so at Troops, what we do is we help companies improve visibility, data quality, and overall efficiency across their go-to-market teams with timely alerts and actions from their most important go-to-market and revenue systems. And the way we do that is we help companies integrate all of those systems into Microsoft Teams and into other enterprise messaging interfaces. And so today we work with a few hundred companies, and excited to be working with Microsoft with Teams, Dynamics, and now Azure.
Mural, love to hear about you guys and your solution.
Great. Hi, I'm Richard Bornstein. I run strategic partnerships for Mural. We're excited to be here and excited to be building a pretty extensive partnership with Microsoft Teams and other groups internally. Jeff, thank you very much for inviting us. Mural is a digital workspace for visual collaboration. I think the last year has proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that collaborating remotely is here to stay. I don't think we're snapping back into the offices overnight. And I think there's just this reality that we've all been living, which is that there are abilities to communicate and collaborate outside of physical location. One of our chief evangelists says, work is what we accomplish together, it's not a place. And so what we do is we enable this visual thinking canvas that includes tools and to be able to guide playful and engaging teamwork, right? And with Mural, teams can better imagine how to solve problems, create new ideas, and drive innovations. And our partnership with Microsoft is a reflection of how these tools are coming together to make sure that we put the power in the hands of the end user.
So you guys will start with Mural. The reason this is called Birds of a Feather is you guys are two companies sort of building collaboration software, leveraging Teams, yet one of you was built sort of natively and thought about Microsoft right away, diving in, while the other is kind of coming around now and understanding the real opportunity to partner and build with Microsoft. Mural, you were built natively on Microsoft, and you've kind of gone all in on Azure from the beginning. What was the reasoning behind that, and sort of what brought you to there in the first place?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Pato. CTO and co-founder of Mural. And the story on why we started on the Azure cloud is basically because when we started Mural, we were working at Disney after selling a video game development company to Disney. And in our other life on building social, massive multiplayer online games, we used Azure, and we had a very, very high scale. Video games might be very challenging in terms of scalability. And back then, our stack was based on Microsoft tooling and technologies. So Azure came up as a solution for that, and it went super, super good with us. The truth is that we ended up being one of Azure's largest customers back in 2008, I believe. So when we started working in Disney with people that were remote, and we had to design video games, we came up with this idea of building this sort of online whiteboard that we now call Mural, basically to co-create in a visual way with people that were not physically present. And what we ended up doing is jump directly to Azure Cloud because we were used to it, and also because there was a very nice startup sponsorship from Microsoft, and we had a lot of help from Microsoft at the beginning, both with credits and with support. But the truth is that with Mural, we didn't jump directly to Microsoft technologies. It was not .NET. It was all open source solutions, and we used Azure Cloud more as an infrastructure as a service than platform as a service to begin with, and it went super, super well. So we continue to grow in Azure. Now we are using more and more of the native services there, and I can tell you more about this later. But a lot of what our customers demand to us in terms of like levels of security, compliance, etc., it's given in the Azure cloud. It's very, as you know, most of our customers are enterprise class, like big companies, and with high standards of compliance. And with Microsoft Cloud, with Azure, it's easy to pass those checks. So super happy with the decision, and we continue to grow in Azure.
So let's move over to Troops. Natively or originally from the outset, you guys were not built on Microsoft technologies, meaning you were born on Slack and on AWS. What tell me a little bit about the journey that brought you to Microsoft, and maybe a little bit about some of the things you wish you had known when starting the company that may have changed your point of view, or maybe it wouldn't have, but would love to hear a little bit about your journey and how different that was.
Yeah, so Jeff, as I mentioned earlier, when we started the company maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we thought that messaging would, or rather work would change, and increasingly in the future, more and more teams would collaborate and get work done in these mediums. And in fact, to the end user, in many ways, they'd feel like they'd have like a digital or a personal assistant at their fingertips, helping them stay on top of their most important tasks. In the case of commercial teams, helping them, follow up with meeting notes or to-dos, updating their pipeline, and more broadly for the organization, getting better visibility into what's happening. By the way, this is especially true. We saw for the past year with COVID and everybody working remote. And so, yeah, to your point, we started really focusing primarily on Slack. Is really where we were born in Salesforce, realizing that at the time Salesforce did and still does a great job in CRM, and Slack was doing pretty interesting things in the messaging space, and as a result saw pretty unique growth. I think what we saw over the past years, more teams and companies all around the world woke up and realized that they needed to embrace the shift in how they work and reorient not only how they interact with their business information, but where that interaction lives. And so we've been seeing increasingly customers ask us to, if we are working with Microsoft products like Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Dynamics. And so that really, our customers really were the ones that forced us to take a hard look at the Microsoft ecosystem. And, one of the things I wish maybe we had done earlier in our journey is, we always knew that this trend would happen. We just didn't realize it would happen as fast as it has. And I think if you look at what's happened in the market, whether it's the big ticket number, the Salesforce Slack acquisition, or the insane numbers that Microsoft is showing on Microsoft Teams, maybe a thing we would have done differently is account for being a bit much more agnostic to system at the onset when we started building. But the past year, we've since made the appropriate investments, and now we not only integrate with Teams and Slack, but Salesforce, HubSpot, Jira, Outreach, Zendesk, Intercom, you name it. And the reason this is important is in the future, there's only going to be more pointed SaaS solutions, not less. There's only going to be more need for integration and automation, not less. And so we support all of that integration and automation in a no-code interface. And so we've since course corrected, and we can now support this very horizontal and broad tech stack, and now can do so as well with Microsoft.
So you sort of this idea of I know in your past you were in sort of the social media space and whatnot, and one of the things I equate what's happening now on Teams, which has 145 million DAU and growing every day, is similar to back in the day when people were building apps on top of Facebook and they were leveraging that audience to get distribution. Is that what's happening here? And sort of like talk a little bit about some of the sort of end user benefits that you see to both developers and to just generally to the users.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I mean, you touched on it, but at a previous life, I was at a company that I helped start, which we merged with a business called Buddy Media, which we then sold to Salesforce. And we were really building power tools for businesses and building those power tools on top of Facebook. And one of the insights there was Facebook was becoming this new ecosystem and sandbox for consumers where they were spending all of their time. I think we saw and believed something similar would inevitably happen at work, and that there would be these messaging mediums. We view them more like operating systems for teams that would really take hold and be the new place by which people would do work. And so part of the benefit in building on these mediums, to your point, is one, there's already a developer platform with a toolkit and features that we as a development company can benefit from. And the second, and probably more important, is distribution, right? Like 150 million DAUs we can now tap into seemingly overnight. And we lived through that when we were building on top of Facebook. And so as a function of building on top of these new, quote, operating systems, we think that's very powerful. And by the way, there's a corollary for this. We think about Microsoft Teams. It's not too dissimilar when you think about iOS or Android and all the companies that have built power applications and businesses on top of those operating systems for the mobile world. The only difference here is this is not only the mobile world, it's the mobile distributed and kind of work from anywhere world. And so through that lens, plus the distribution, plus the weight and features and development toolkit that Microsoft is shipping, that makes it a really easy decision for us to kind of go all in and focus on not all systems, but a few, Microsoft being one of them.
It does seem like this is like an important moment for the enterprise with the advent of Teams as a place where you can get distribution before, where you couldn't in the past. You could get access to customers in ways you couldn't in the past. It just seems like this is an opportunity to really raise the opportunity for innovation in the enterprise. So back to you, Mural. What so far surprised you, both in a good and bad way, in working with Microsoft? And what are some things that you've maybe been excited about it as you've gone in this journey?
So we've integrated into Microsoft Teams very early on. So if there's anything not great to talk about Microsoft, is that we sort of suffered from the early days of lack of documentation and probably too young and immature APIs. But the truth is that right now is quite the opposite in every sense. For Azure, for instance, it's an amazing ecosystem for the developer. The amount of integrations you have with IDEs such as Visual Studio Code, the easiness and the user experience or developer experience on the Azure portal. And it's not just the portal, it's also the SDKs, the APIs, the amount of documentation and the level of support that you provide, super professional, super high quality. So again, in terms of developer experience, the ecosystem is amazing. It's super easy to create a sandbox, test out things. It's a really good place to start for a startup, I would say. And in terms of user experience and how to integrate with, this is more with Teams, right? I will let you, Richard, talk about this, but again, Microsoft Teams, it's like a way for us not to try and bring users into yet one new destination as Mural.com, but instead going where the users are and sort of embedding Mural inside Teams. That's what we did, and it's paying off. But Richard, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll just add that our love and our focus is pure from the sense that a lot of our largest customers use Mural and Teams simultaneously, right? And then the ask has been, can you make these? I use these every day, all day long. Can you make these work better together? And so that's really a great starting point for us, right? And Teams didn't have that over the entirety of our existence, but in the last number of years, that drumbeat has gotten louder and louder and louder and louder to the point where it's become one of our top priorities. And so making our customers happy, making that individual end user has been highly impacted by the integration, the tool, and the partnership that we have, even on the human level, with folks at Teams and Azure and other groups internally that are allowing us to do the very fundamental thing, which is make our customers happy.
Yeah, one of the things that it occurred to me, and I'll start with Mural on this, and then it'd be great to get Troops' perspective. As an entrepreneur who never really started an enterprise business, I've been sort of dumbfounded by the concept of being enterprise ready and how hard it is to be enterprise ready. Mural, we'll start with you guys because you were built natively, and then we can move over to Troops. What does it mean to be enterprise ready to you? And what should developers understand about how, I guess, Microsoft can help you become enterprise ready or building on Azure? Pato, you touched on it a little bit in terms of some of the things that you talked about from a compliance standpoint, but is it something that I think, is it something that comes easy, or is it something that is a real challenge?
Well, definitely it's a challenge. Yeah, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to cut you off, buddy. One of the things I want to tell you a little story about this gentleman sitting right here, Pato. These guys, I've helped build a bunch of startups, and to your point, Jeff, you typically start SMB, you earn your way up to mid-tier, and then you aspire to enterprise, right? These guys were bold enough / crazy enough to think we're going to start at enterprise, and we're going to build every product view, every lens that we have on where we think the greatest impact is going to be is at these large organizations that are really challenged, even pre-pandemic, and how they communicate, collaborate, and work together effectively. And so in order to do that, not only was the product side really gathered initially from that kind of that large goal, but all the infrastructure that we've built and the mentality that we've built has been enterprise ready. And for us, that's a couple of different things. It's really thinking of scale, right? Thinking about the ability to scale across thousands of users within an organization. And Pato mentioned, you've got to have best-in-class security. You got to have great admin features so that can be manipulated easily. We also spend a lot of time thinking about how to be the best partner in that process, right? So we talk a lot about this transformation that's underway, and we're partners in the transformation, and to become part of a supportive community that together we provide this major impact and learning and really guide this transformation. So there's a human element mixed with the technological element. And then there's something that we call one of our key superpowers, which is facilitation. And by facilitation, I mean we have experts and templates and workshops and enablement sessions. And what we do is we work really closely with our clients and partners in facilitating the way they use the platform, engage the platform, and build for the future. And lastly, and Tata, if you want to add something, I think part of that is like the intuitive features. Right? You've got to have the features that people find meaningful, impactful, and useful. And so we're not only, rich with those now, but we also think in terms of it being simple enough for first-time users, and heavy enough for the heavy users, so that they can have the scale and breadth in the platform that they expect, and ultimately create the biggest productivity boost for them.
So Troops, you guys have gone from. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, no, just to add very quickly, if you want to sell to big corporations such as Microsoft, Fidelity, we have very big customers, U.S. government. You need to certify and go through the compliance audits from all of them. They don't buy to anyone. And being like SOC 2 Type 2 certified, GDPR ready, etc., has a lot to do with the technology and the foundations of how you manage your data, your processes, your people. And in our case, being hosted on top of Azure, having top-notch encryption and security levels really helped out on those certification process.
Yeah, so going back to Troops, you guys have done the journey from the sort of other direction. Now, as you've gone from sort of SMB into enterprise, I do think like one of the interesting things that's happened in the meetings that we had was sort of the initial meetings that you guys had. There were different things that the Troops team had kind of asked you, the Teams team had kind of talked to you guys about, and there weren't full understanding of why you'd want to add certain pieces of, feature sets or integrations with Teams. But as it turns out now, a lot of this is about being enterprise ready. So how do you think about what you've learned from that perspective, and how has sort of the most recent work with Microsoft helped you understand that concept?
Yeah, Jeff, absolutely. I think for us, and this goes to something that you touched on previously in terms of learnings that were new discoveries for us. Honestly, we were pretty blown away after working with Microsoft in terms of the out-of-the-box capabilities that are available, both from the technical perspective, the ease of migration to Azure and how quickly we were able to spin up a multi-cloud environment on Azure, which is just a matter of weeks, as well as the capabilities of the marketplace that allows us to reach enterprise customers much faster. A big one in that regard is an ability to take payment directly from App Source and through the Microsoft Marketplace, and allow us to have contracts on the Microsoft paper. This is really an exciting capability because it allows us to accelerate the procurement process and get in front of very large customers much faster. So we were pretty excited about those features, and especially as we go up market.
So we have one question here that comes from the audience that's, I think, directed at you, Greg, that I think you could kind of answer well. And it's an interesting thing to think about is what kind of challenges did you have when creating Teams integration when you were previously focused on Slack? Were there any large hurdles to decoupling from Slack to be able to integrate with Teams?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, a couple ways of describing that challenge. So first, obviously, from a UI perspective, both Slack and Teams provide slightly different capabilities. And the first step that we had to take is really understand which way do we want to go. One way would be to create a common denominator, smallest common denominator of the user interface and constrict it across both platforms. And the other is make everything generic and then actually leverage the capabilities and edges between the two messaging platforms. So we decided to go with the latter, and once we dug into the Teams UI capabilities, especially things like channel tabs as well as personal profile tabs, it really highlighted pieces of functionality that are not available in Slack. So we were able to bring in things like settings and configuration directly into the messaging interface because those capabilities were available. And that just streamlines the customer onboarding process and makes the interaction that much smoother. So we were really positively surprised about those kind of capabilities. As well as one major one that we really liked is the out-of-the-box integration with the native single sign-on capabilities inside of Microsoft Teams. So that essentially allows us to hook into the existing sign-on and authentication mechanisms that Teams provides in order to just very quickly install our app and enable user interaction. So those were big learnings. Those capabilities are not available on Slack. There isn't a Slack analog. And when faced with choice, do we go generic across the board or do we go hyper-specific to Teams? After evaluating those capabilities and seeing the power, we decided it's better to fork and lead into those capabilities rather than constricting the user experience kind of on both sides of the marketplace.
So we have about 4 minutes left, and so I wanted to do kind of an open-ended question for you guys, and anyone can weigh in on this. I think what's exciting about is, you know, this theme around opening up enterprise innovation with a platform like Teams, and obviously there's a bunch of different surface areas that Microsoft has in its products. When you think about what you've learned in this time working on this type of software, I think like every time that I've started a company, as you do this, you realize, oh, there's a really interesting other problem that I could solve, or oh, there's this cool thing that I could build now. Are there something in the world that you guys would want to do? And maybe I'll throw out to Mural first. Is there another problem that you think would be interesting to solve that, you know, we can maybe make our attendees' time worthwhile by giving them an idea that they can run with to build on top of Teams? Is there anything that comes to mind for you guys?
I have a quick one, more of a theme than a concrete idea, which is that with the lack of personal contact and you know, getting to exchange ideas with body language and such, you miss a lot of the other person. When you're collaborating remote, it's hard to understand personalities, to understand if they are burned up, you know, their level of stress and such. So thinking about how to improve team collaboration through exposing and showing other team members' personalities and level of stress somehow would be a great idea.
Yeah, I think some of these listening tools are interesting. Obviously, there's a big brother component to it that you worry about a little bit, but it's sort of like the early days of ad targeting, where it's like you're trying to do something for the benefit of the customer. So why wouldn't you do it? Anyone else have any closing thoughts on things that they think would be great to build on top of these collaboration software?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of take it one step further. You know, it's like if you think about these mediums now, you have the whole organization in there, and with, you know, the right listening tools, you can get a sense of culture, of sentiment, of how people are feeling, who the hard workers are, less hard workers are, how motivated they are. And like with that analysis, you could actually probably drive pretty unique recommendations and directives and suggestions to the company on how they can change their culture, change their meetings. So there's definitely something there, even though it's definitely big brother in nature. But Jeff, to your point, that's not new. Like I think categorically in technology, we're just accustomed to big brother technology these days. So there's definitely something there.
Great. Well, thanks so much, guys. We're at time. It's been great having this discussion. For me, like, it's so exciting to see these innovative solutions being built on top of our stack and being able to help out as Microsoft for Startups. As I mentioned, we're working on some new stuff. If you'd like to get signed up for an early preview, you can see the link on the screen right now. Go there, sign up, get an early preview of what we're building. And thanks again for joining us at Build.